Hello everyone. Welcome back to the stream. Hi everyone. Awesome. Folks are joining in. Great to see you here back again. If you have attended the previous two, and if not, not a worry, we'll cover all aspects today again as well. Welcome, Rasmi, to the stream. Yep, I am super excited as well for the part three because this time we'll be doing some code as well. Welcome, Daniel. Yeah, this time we definitely are not late and we'll cover everything again. Cool. Awesome. So we'll be waiting for a minute more and then we'll get started. I hope like you all enjoyed the previous two parts of this series, and today we are almost towards the end, but definitely a great learning experience for me as well because like this was the first time I was interacting with Spotify API and I learned a lot as well, and I hope you all did as well. Hey Sunny, great to see you here. Awesome. So welcome everyone once again to the stream. I all I hope you all are having some fun this global hack week, right? Let me grab a quick water. Reminder for every one of you to drink water if you have not already. Good. Awesome. Today is gonna be like a pretty cool stream because like we will be doing everything that we did in part one and two. Uh, that we did everything in Postman, right? So we'll be doing all of those things with Node.js today, building some kind of a full stack application and interacting with those APIs. We'll be writing some codes, but don't worry, we'll be doing everything in a very beginner friendly manner, and I'll be sharing all the code source and everything, so you can definitely reference it if you want later on. So I guess we can get started now. Let me pull my screen. Welcome everyone to the stream once again. Uh, feel Please feel absolutely free to ask me any questions in the chat or comment at any time. And you can even ask me to slow down if I'm going too fast. So yeah, not a worry. And without further ado, let's get started. I hope my screen is visible to you all. So today we'll be building a song recommender with Spotify API, and we'll be doing that with the help of Node.js. We'll be building some sort of like full stack application. It will have a pretty basic front end, and we will have our back end in Express.js. Cool. Uh, and we will see how Postman can help us, write the code in a faster manner as well. Uh, if you have not already joined the previous streams, hello everyone. I am Sagar, the MLS coach from Nepal. I'm also the founder of Cave Hackface, the national hackathon here in Nepal. Also, GitHub Campus expert. I do love eating pizzas, like pizzas as my favorite go-to food, and I love traveling in nature as well. And apart from that, I am practicing cloud and DevOps. Yep, so that is about me. By the way, I am also beginning my full-time role as a cloud tech evangelist from next week. So yeah, that is some job update for you all. And if you want to connect with me, feel free to connect with me anytime. I'm mostly active on my Twitter and LinkedIn. So yep, that was about me. So what we will be doing today. So let's see that. So the agendas for today, as I already mentioned, we will be making API requests, right? And we will be using authentications as well. So we'll be using OAuth to connect with Spotify Web API. But today we'll be using a simpler version of OAuth than we did in part two. So and we will see how we can make the process a lot easier. We will also see client credentials OAuth flow. So that will make the things much easier because last time, if you remember, we had something called the OAuth dance and a lot of steps was involved over there. But this time it will be just 2 or 3 steps, and we'll be calling the Spotify API, and we'll do everything with Node.js and a very basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Uh, we'll be using a platform called Glitch. I will be showcasing that in a moment. Uh, you might ask why? Because like it provides the all the environment and all the things that we need to do this demo in the browser itself. So we don't need to install Node.js in our own PC or desktop, right? So we can code right away in the browser itself, and it will host the code live. So you will even get a URL to see your application running. So that will make things a lot easier instead of downloading Node.js and installing on your machine. If you are familiar with Node.js and can run it on your own machine with some code editor, feel free to do that. But for this demo, and to make it easier for everyone, we will be doing it in glitz. Cool. And again, the surprise, if you have not joined the previous streams, we have an exclusive swag pack giveaway, and you're not late for it as well. So in order to take part in this giveaway, you just need to do a couple of steps, which I will tell in a bit. Yeah, so we will be giving the swags at the end of this stream. So we'll be doing a wheel of name raffle, and then we'll be picking out the winner at the end of this stream, and we will have a swag pack giveaway. Awesome. I can see Samri, then other people joining in. Awesome. Great to see you folks. Cool. So the prerequisites to do this session is like you just need two different things. You need a Postman account because we want to interact with the Postman platform. We'll just use it for testing purpose in this demo. So that will be uh, the Postman account. We'll also use Glitch, as I already said, and to interact with the Spotify API, we have a Spotify account. Uh, yeah, Rosmi caught something. Yeah, I did mention that it was April 10 yesterday, but that was all due to, there was some mix up with the timings from the MLS portal. That was the reason. The dates were wrong, but it will be today. So if you have not completed the steps, make sure that you do it throughout the stream till the end, because I will be collecting all the names at the end and doing the swag giveaway. The step is pretty clear for the swags. What you need to do is that share whatever you have learned in this particular stream or my previous streams, right? And just post it on Twitter, tagging my Twitter account as well as MLS, and use hashtag GSW, or you can even post that in the public thread which is on Discord. So if you go to the GSW API week chat, I have made a, if you scroll a bit up, I have made a thread where you can share your learnings over there as well. So yeah, you can do that to get swags, and all the resources are once again available on this link. So I will just quickly share that link once again in the comment. So if you go to this link, you will find all the resources, all the links, and all the tools, as well as all the instruction that we need to follow. So you will find all the resources over here, and I will be using the same resource to complete this workshop as well. Awesome. So I guess that is it for the introduction, and now it's time for us to get into the action. So I will pull my browser over here, and if you go to the link I just sent in the comment, so that's the link for the all the resources, and you can scroll down to go to the day 2 part 3, which is today. And the first step that you need to do is go to the check-in link and make sure that you are checked in. So let me do that as well. So I'm on the link here, and let me click on register. Yep, now I have registered, and I will also make sure to check it. Cool. So now I'm checked into the event, and this will make you eligible to win points for the standard MLH swags. Awesome. And after that, okay, cool. So let us recap what we did yesterday, so that it will be easier for us to dive into the things today. So what we did yesterday was, let me pull my Postman workspace, which is also available here. So if you click on this link, then it will take you to the Postman workspace. And if you have not signed up to Postman, make sure you do that before you access this workspace. So in yesterday, we did the part 2 of this series, and here we built a Spotify recommender. So what we did was we went to the Spotify API docs, and we figured out how we can get recommendation for a user based on a song name and the artist they like. So the user would input the track or a song name and the artist that they like, and based on that, we will get the closest or the first match of the song in Spotify, and we'll get the track ID from there. And we have used that track ID in the second request, which is the recommendations request. And in this request we have passed on the track ID, and that will eventually give us the list of tracks that we want to see. And if you click on send, we can see that we got, oh, so there was some like OAuth, right? So we set up an OAuth as well, which is not configured here because this is a public one. So it's saying no token was provided, but we configured all of that, and we got a response, and we could even visualize it, right? So that is what we did yesterday. And today what we will be doing is that we'll be doing the similar flow, but we will be doing all of that in Postman. So yeah, so let's get started. I would say in Node.js, sorry. So For that, I will request all of you to open the starter code glitch link, not the completed code. So you can see the completed code as well, but that is like the complete part of this whole stream. So if you face any issues while doing the code, or following me, you can definitely check out the completed code portion, which have the entire app in it. But we'll be starting with the starter code, and I will be showcasing all the steps one by one. So if you just go open the complete code, which I have already opened here, right? So this will take you to the glitch portal, and let me do that. So it will load my project in the glitch platform. So I will close the preview button for now. It will just take a moment to load your project, and after that, you can see all the files in my project over here. You can see there are two folders named public and Spotify, and we have like different files over here. We have server.js and everything. So I will explain all of that later. You don't need to worry about it. I just wanted to show there is a button called preview, and if you click on preview in a new window, so this is the application that we are trying to build, and let's see if it does the same thing that we did yesterday from Postman. So I'll provide a name, right? So just anything, I'll provide something with love, and artist could be Britney Spears. Okay, cool. So I'll try to click on get recommendation and see if it works. Yep, and you see that we get a list of results and the name of the songs, right? And if you click on get recommendation again, it will recommend you the top 3 songs. We will get a list of response that is much larger than it has hundreds of songs, but we will only pick the top 3 and showcase it to the user, because we don't want to recommend every song that is close to Love and Britney Spears, right? Awesome. So let me close this preview for now, and let me even close the complete code, because we will be using the starter code instead. But yeah, you can open it in in a tab in your browser if you want to just follow along, or review whenever you get stuck. Cool. Awesome. So now let us open the starter code. Awesome. Okay, cool. I'll pull this on the other side of my screen. Cool. Just a second. I don't know what is happening with my browser over here. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, so this is the starter code, right? I will close the preview for now. Okay, and let us try to see what is happening over here. So we have 3 different folders over here, and uh, the 3 other files. So let us explore that one by one. But before that, what you all can do is just click on preview to get a glimpse of what it is at the current state. So if I click on preview, it will load me a site, and we have this beautiful form. We just have 2 input fields, song name and artist, and we have a button. But as you can see, when you click on this field, it will ask for a name. So even if I provide the name and click on getting, nothing happens, right? Because this is just the starter code, and we have not done anything. We have not configured anything, so it will not work. So I'll close the preview, and a better option to do this preview is to open it in a new window. So I'll do that right away. Awesome. Here we go. Mhm, mhm. Awesome. So now if you see on the code section, so let's explore what are here. So this is Express.js application. So if you click on server.js, so here you will see the code, which is an Express.js code. It is, we are using Node.js for this one, but we don't need to install that because Glitch has already done that for us, right? And, we are using a backend framework, which is made use by like a lot of developers at present time, right? So we'll be using Express. So that way this is the file, and this might be overwhelming in the beginning, but let's try to see what is happening here. So we have something called base URL, which is not set at the moment. Here we are using the Express app, right? And let us try to see what is over here. So this seems familiar to us, right? Because this is like an endpoint in our Postman, right? So we used to have different sort of HTTP methods and an endpoint. And here you can see that it is using the get method, and the endpoint is slash, which is usually the main router, right? So whenever we click on the preview button, so it takes us to this URL, and this is the slash endpoint, because if it is nothing mentioned after slash, it's just the main URL. So if you click on refresh, you are getting this HTML page, right? And how is it getting that page? It is mentioned over here. So we are sending a response, which is a HTML file, and the file is inside the public folder, right? So if you go to the public folder, here you will be able to see all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript file from the client side, right? So if you go to the index.html page, this is the HTML response that we are getting over here. So you can see that we have the title over here. We also have, form which have three different inputs. Two of them are the text input, and one of it is the submit button. And this is the index.html page, right? And we have some stylings over here, which we don't need to worry over here. And we have some client-side JavaScript, right? And it does some basic form handling things. So we will look into that in a second. And so this was about the public folder. And we have something called Spotify, which I have added for you all because it contains a lot of the function codes and everything that we will be needing to interact with the Spotify API. I have already mentioned the code over here, so you can just copy and paste the code, but I will be explaining how does it work so that it will be easier for you all. And apart from that, we can see three other files. So the public file, whatever was there in the public folder, was the static files like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And the script.js file which you see here is the client-side JavaScript, right? Which means the front end of your application. But the server.js represents the back end of your application. And this is the beauty of Node.js. It allows you to write both the front end and back end in a single project. So the server.js is the back end, and whatever is inside the public folder is your front end. And we have something called package.json. So this is used to manage all your npm packages. So Node, being a framework, provides you to install a lot of different packages to help your app functionality. So we'll be using different packages, one of which is Express, which we are using, right? So we'll be talking about that. It has all the dependencies over here, and you have a readme file which explains the project in a bit manner, right? So in front end we have these three different files, and on the back end we have the server.js, the package.json, and one more which is the .env file. So .env file, if you don't know, is generally used to store some kind of secret that we don't want to uh, showcase or share with other people. So in our case, we don't want to share our Spotify client ID and client secret with other users, right? Because they can exploit it. So we will be storing that value in .env file, and we will be referencing that environment variable in our code later on. Cool. If you go to the plain text mode, then you will be able to see it in plain text mode, or you can click on the graphical mode and paste the value over here. So let's go ahead and do that actually, because it is asking us to fill the environment variable, right? So open your Spotify web API. So that we did yesterday. So you can go to the developer.spotify.com. It is also mentioned in the resources link, and create an account if you have not already. And I will go to the dashboard. I have already created an app that we used in part 1 and part 2. And I will be using the same app. So if you go to the settings, you will be able to see the client ID, right? And also the client secret if you click on new client secret. So I'll just copy and paste them. Awesome. I will copy and paste it over here. And I will also make sure, just a second. So since this is the starter code that I'm sharing with you all, I will not edit in this folder or in this project, because like if I edit here, it will be reflected in all of your fork as well. So what we can do instead is, okay, what we can do is, let me go back to the project settings. And here you will be able to see an option called remix this project, right? So it's like forking a GitHub repo or making a copy of your own. We did that for Postman collection as well, right? So we'll be doing the same thing. I will not edit this starter code. I will create a copy of my own, and then I'll edit. So for that, as I already said, you can go to the settings and click on remix the project. Cool. So I'll remix this project. I will request you all of you to do that as well. Just click on remix, and that will remix your project. It's also available here on the top right corner. So this will create a copy of that starter code in your own account. So if you don't have a glitch account, you will need to create a glitch account first, and then you will be able to remix. Awesome. Let's wait for a few seconds, and then we should be good to go. I don't know why it's taking a bit of time today. Awesome. In the meantime, uh, okay, Samri, that is a good question. So, what should we put in the redirect URI? For now, since we'll be doing this API call from a backend server, right? So, we'll be using express.js. So, we'll be using something called server to server communication. So, you can put any URL for now. Just put in localhost.com or localhost colon 3000 for now, or any random URL would work because we will not be relying on the redirect URL in this case. So you can put in any random URL. That should not be a problem. Let me refresh this. I don't know why is it taking this much of time. Just I'll close and start again. I don't know why it's glitch taking time for me. Okay, so we were using the starter code, right? So I will go to the starter code and I will click on remix. Just a second, like it is loading the project. I don't know why is this like taking so much of time today. Let me do that again. I will do it just a second. Mhm, mhm. Just a second. Mhm. Can anyone in the chat tell me like if they are able to remix their project? That would be helpful. Uh, should we hardcode the client ID and secret, or should we make a variable for it? So that is what I am referring to. Whenever we use environment variable, so we are storing it in a variable, right? And we'll be using the variable in our JavaScript code, which we can refer to later on. So make sure that you store it in .env file and not anywhere else. Because if you store it in .env, we'll be able to extract it from something called process.env in Node.js, and I'll be soaking that later on. Cool. Uh, Once again, I'll try to remix. So Daniel was able to. Awesome. I don't know why is that the case for me. Awesome, Daniel. I'll give it a one more shot. Let me pull that over in my other screen. Just a second. Hmm. Mhm, mhm. Okay, so I will do one thing. Uh, I hope I don't know why I'm not being able to remix. It might be because I'm trying to remix my own project, but that should not be a problem in my opinion. So what I will do is I will edit in the starter code itself. So I hope you all have remixed it by now. I'll just wait for 1 more minute so that all of you are able to remix, and then I'll just edit in the main uh, starter code itself. Cool. Oh, okay. So, yep. No, what you can do, Samrit, is that if you're working in VS Code, uh, what you can do is you can create a .env file over there as well and store the variable over there. So that is what you can do. So in the spot, if you are working in VS Code, if you click on the, I'll just close the preview for now. If you click on the text mode, you will be able to see something like this. So you will need to, name the variable in this manner. So capital letters, it should be the same as this, and paste the value over here. And we'll be using that later on. And just put .env file in gitignore and not the Spotify one, just the .env file. Awesome. Cool. So let's go back, and I'll be doing the edit in this starter code itself, okay? Because like I could not remix for some reason. Cool. So let us try to see uh, what we need to do. So I have mentioned some of the to-dos, right, to make sure that uh, we will be able to do this stream smoothly and all of you could follow along. So I have mentioned some of the to-dos and we'll be looking over that. So let us first go to index.html and see if there are any to-dos over here. So yeah, let me also open the preview tab. Uh, okay, cool. So this is the preview of our app right now. And here is one to do, right? So if you go to the index.html in the public folder, I how okay, so Genial, you don't need to, you don't need to hide secrets if you're working locally. So just create a .env file and paste it over here. And whenever you don't want to share it with anyone else, if you use something like GitHub, just create a .ignore file and make sure to add the .env file over there. You can just do a quick Google and see how you can create a .gitignore file for Node.js, and you will be able to see how you can ignore that. Awesome. Uh, hey, MVR Picky, if you're working locally, yeah, you should download a Node.js first, but I would recommend you to just use Gliss because you don't need to install anything else. So go to the uh, resources that I have provided. So once again, I will paste the link over here. So this is the link, right? So I have shared in the screen, and if you go over there, you will be able to find this Gliss link, and you will just be able to follow along from there. Cool. Awesome. Hmm. Awesome. After that, let's see what are the to-dos over here. So there are two to-dos, right? So it has said that we need to include handlebars and Axios from a CDN. So we'll be using handlebars for templating our response, right? So if you see the complete code, let me pull that up. Awesome. So yesterday we did get a response, and we were able to visualize, right? So just a second, not the starter code, I want the uh, just a second. Mhm. Okay, let me pull that up. Awesome. So this is the link for the complete one. So if you type a song over here and a artist, so you will be able to see this response, right? So we are using some templating for this, and we are using handlebars.js. That's why we need to use handlebar.js over here, right? So that is what we need to do here. So I'll be doing the same thing. Just a second, where is my, okay, cool. So in my glitch, what I will do is uncomment this two line, right? So I will be, you can just click on backspace and just remove this symbols to uncomment HTML file, and then you will be able to import these two scripts. So we did that. And if you're wondering from where we get that, a quick Google search of CDN for Axios and Handlebar would give you this link. Cool. After that, I see no more to-dos in the HTML page. So I guess we are good to go from here. So I'll just click Control S to save. And let's see if there are any to-dos in script.js. Awesome. So I see some to-dos over here. So, okay. So let's try to understand what is happening over here. So we are just logging a message over here, since this script.js refers to the front end JavaScript, right? And this server.js is the backend JavaScript. So whatever you see over here, right? So you will be able to see this in your preview tab. So if you go to my tab over here and click on inspect. So if I go to my console over here, so let me go to the console. Here you will be able to see the message, right? Hello.javascript is shown over here. Cool. Awesome. So that is what we see over there. And then we have uh, two variable name output and button. So it is just getting the uh, these two elements from the HTML page. So if you go to the HTML page once again, so we have something called submit button, right? So uh, we have two input field called track and artist and a submit button. So it is grabbing this button from the HTML, and we have an on submit event. So whenever you click on the get recommendations button over here, it will call a function named submit form, and that function is defined uh, over in the script.js file. So this is the function that it will call. Whenever you click this button, this function will execute, right? And we can see like there is some boilerplate code and we are trying to do something, and if there is an error, then we are alerting that if something went wrong with the error message, and finally we enable and disable the button, right? So we have this functionality over here. So if you just see the function over here, we first try to uh, prevent default. So this will, whenever you type in something and click on send, this will make sure that uh, the value remain here in the form and not get lost, right? So by default, it will automatically get refreshed whenever you click on button. But since we are preventing default, so it is not refreshed and the data is still there. And then we are calling a function named disable button. So let's try to see what this does. So if you scroll down a bit, so this just changes the text of the value to searching, right? And the enable button does the other way around. So it changes the value of a button to get recommendation. So we will see that once we complete all the tasks, we will see how does that work, because like right now it does not happen anything, right? Eh, awesome. Yeah, great to see you folks are helping each other, and that is awesome to see. Cool, cool. Awesome. Let me hide the current one. So we went through all of that, right? So let us try to see what are the to dos over here. So the first to do over here, it says something like send a post request to the backend, and the path should be slash recommendations, right? So it is asking us to send post request to the backend. So this script.js is acting like a front end, and we need to send a post request to slash recommendation endpoint, and we'll be doing everything over there on how we call the Spotify API and everything over backend, right? So the first thing that we need to do is send a post request from our backend to our front end to our backend, right? So let's see how we can do that. And in order to help you out, I have mentioned the helper code in the helper code folder over here. So if you just go over there and click on client.js, so all the helper code for client.js will be over here, and for the backend will be on the server.js. Okay, cool. So if you click on client.js, so here you will be able to see the code that is needed to send a post request to backend, right? So I'll just copy this, all of this, and I will go to the script.js, and below here, let me just paste the code. Okay, and let's try to see what is happening over here, right? So we are first, defining a variable called result. So whatever the result we get from the post request, we'll store it in a variable called result. So we are first defining the variable in JavaScript, and then you can see this try catch pattern a lot of time, right? So this is usually done, whenever we send a request to an API, we will have some error handling mechanism. So if we have some error, then we can catch that error and then return some message to the user. So that is why we usually use the try class block, right? So in try block, we will execute our code, and if it fails by some reason, or if the post request was not a success, then we will catch the error and display the message to the user. So that is all what we are doing over here. And in the result part, we are using Axios, right? So let's and it is saying that Axios is not defined. So let us scroll in the top and uncomment the line where we are importing Axios, right? Okay, and since we used a CDN, right? So we earlier uncommented the CDN for Axios, right? So we will be able to use that in script.js and uh, in over here as well. Let me also uncomment handlebars for now because it will be needed later on. So we are using Axios, and Axios allows us to make API requests from front end, or the vanilla JavaScript, or the plain JavaScript, as we want to call. So we will use the Axios function, and it has the function called .post, and we will first provide the endpoint where we want to send the request, and then after that we will provide it the parameters that we want to send in the request. So here we are sending the value of track and artist, and if you see how we are getting this value, so if you go here, and this is the place where we are getting the form values, right? So what we are doing is that if you see in the HTML, so whenever we call the onSubmit function, we are passing on the event all the event object in the submit form, right? So that is what we are getting from the event object. And if you go to event.target, you will be able to extract all the values that user typed in. So since we named the values as track and artist, so if you go to if you extract the element and click on and use the elements dot track dot value method, then you will be able to extract the value for the track. Likewise, you will be able to use extract the value of artist as well. And by the way, this is the same as if you can also do elements as event.target.element. This is same as the earlier one, but since we want to repeat the avoid the repetition of code, we can just use the JavaScript destructuring method. So this is same as what we did earlier. Cool. So it is just we can name a variable as well as get the value in the single. Cool. So we have got the form values, and now in the post request, we are sending a post request to a path called slash recommendations, and with passing the value of track and artist, right? And we are catching some error if there is any, and then we are also returning the alert message if there is an error. Awesome. So that is what we are trying to do. And now let us try to save and see what happens, right? So if I go to save and try to send song again, so love and Taylor Swift. Let us see what happens over here. Awesome. So still nothing is happening. And if you go to the Gliss portal and click on logs over here, you will be able to see the backend logs. Okay, so all the console.logs that you will do in the front end will be in the inspect tab in your browser, and all the console.log that you will do in the backend will be available in this logs path. So right now nothing is happening because we are not doing anything in the slash recommendation path. We are just sending a request, but is there a route that handle this request? So that is what we need to check in the backend. So let us go to our backend in server.js, and let us try to go to the slash recommendation path, right? So we have the slash recommendation path, and it is accepting the request and response object, but we are not doing anything with it. That's why nothing was happening when we click on the get recommendation button. So uh, summarizing what we did till now, so we imported the CDN for Axios and handlebar over here in our index.html page. And then in the front side JavaScript, what we did is we have a button called submit but form, and we got the values of track and artist from the form. And what we did is that we passed those values of track and artist to backend path slash recommendations using Axios, because it allows us to make API requests. And if you want to see how I know that it needs to be mentioned at axios.post, I just checked over the Axios documentation, and I found how we can make request with Axios. That is how we do that. And if you see, there is something called await, right? So this is usually done, when we make an external request to API, it usually takes some time, right? So whenever we make a get request or a post request, it usually takes some time, and we don't want to block the execution of code during that time. So what we do is that we create there is something called promise in JavaScript. So it will create a promise, and it will wait for this request to complete. And after the request is complete, or we get a response from the API, and then we'll use the value. So that is why we use the await keyword. And whenever you use await, you must mention it as a async or asynchronous function before your function name, right? So in JavaScript, just make sure that you mention it as async, and you can await for the response. And we did some error handling over there. So that is all what we did. So, and now heading back to our backend path, let's try to do something. Okay, so let me try to uncomment this and see what happens if I do now. If I uncomment and click on save, and I go here and click recommendation again. So now if I go to the logs, right? Just a second, to the slash recommendation path. So let's use Postman to check our request, right? So I'll open Postman for now. You can use if you want, but this is optional. So I will just showcase it to you all, right? Okay. So if I go to my check front end path, right, in the part 3 section, I will just edit this path, get request, and I will just paste the link what I have for the starter code. And This is the check front end, and it should give me the response. Yeah, I can see that the page is over here as well. And for the get recommendations path, I will do the same. So I will just edit the base URL, and let me delete that double slash and see what happens, right? So now I receive this message, okay response, right? And that is exactly what we set over here. So whenever you go to the slash recommendations path, I'm getting this response with a message of okay. Awesome. But now let's try to see what we need to do, right? So just sending a message of okay is not enough. So let's try to remember what we did yesterday, and let us do that again. So if you scroll a bit down, then here you will be able to see all the to-dos that we need to do, right? So the thing that we did yesterday was, right, so we, in order for us to get the recommendation for song, so we did all of these things. So we first got an access token from API using OAuth, right? Because we need the OAuth or the access token to interact with the Spotify API. And then we need to use that token in all our requests. And then by using that token, we called the Spotify API to get the track ID for a song. And we use that track ID to the recommendations API, and we passed in the track ID, and then that is how we get a list of recommendation, right? So over here, if you go to the part two, that is what we did, right? So in the get recommendations API, we passed in the track ID, and for the general track ID, we passed in the name of the track and the artist. So that is what we will be doing here as well, but in code. So let's do that. So the first step is to get access token from Spotify. So let me just cut that, or perhaps copy. I'll copy this over here, and in the recommendations inside the post method, I will just do whatever is needed over here. So in order to get the access token from API, just go to the helper code, and from this is the server's JS, right? So go over here, and all the code is over here. I'll just copy and paste and explain it to you what is going over here. Cool. So I'll just copy and paste and see what's happening over here. Again, since we are using await keyword, this function needs to be async. So this needs to be async. So I just fix that, and I also get error, right? So this function named get access token is not defined. So I will just uncomment that from the top, so that now I guess no error is there. Okay. So what we are doing here is that we are defining a variable name access token in order to store that access token that we get from Spotify. And again, we use the try class block, to try the code execution. And if some error happens, we are just console. We are displaying it on console as well as sending some message over here. And we are using a function named get access token, right? And that function is inside, if you see over here, it is inside Spotify auth, right? So if you go to the Spotify folder, you will be able to see the auth.js file over here. And you don't need to worry about this. We will be going this afterwards. You don't need to worry about how we are getting the token for now, and I will be explaining that in a bit. But for now, what you need to understand is that in server.js path, whenever we go to the slash recommendation route, the first thing that we are doing is to get access token, and we are using a function called get access token, and it contains all the API calls to Spotify API, and we are getting access token in return. So that is all what we need to know, right? And in order to check, what you can do is console.log access token. So if you type this, sorry, just a second. If you type this and hit save, and now if you try to send some message over here, I'll just refresh this. I'll refresh this, and click on get recommendation, and it says that something went wrong when fetching access token, right? And let's see what was the error over here. So request failed with status code 404. Let's try to see what was the error. And if you click on .env, this is the error because we have not set our Spotify client ID and client secret, right? Awesome. Awesome. If you're using this locally, you can set the port variable as well as environment variable summary. You can set it to 3000 or any other number. Let me just quickly check if we are using that though. Yeah, so since we are using process.env for accessing the port variable, so yeah, you can use, you need to store that in .env file. Awesome. So let us go back over here to my .env file, and I will just copy and paste my Spotify uh, credentials. Spotify. Let me go over here and click on dashboard. Right, I'll go to my app and to settings, and I'll copy my client ID as well as client. Okay, I'll copy my client ID first. Awesome, and paste it over here, and then go to client secret, and then paste it over here. Awesome. So that is what we are doing now. And if I click on save, and now if I try to, send this request again, it's that now you can see the button change, right? So we mentioned about this in the HTML page, right? So the button text was changing. Now if I go to logs, yeah, you will be able to see, yeah, we are getting some access token over here, right? So that is what we are getting. So we have successfully authenticated our app with Spotify. So I can just close that for now. Now what we can do is that we have done the part 1, and now let us try to complete all the part 2, 3, and everyone. So now we have completed this part. So in the step 2, let me copy this and do that again. If you are following along, just make sure that you also open the complete code link, right? In the resources, I've also shared you the complete glitch pack, right? So if you are, if you get stuck, or if you are feeling that I'm going a bit faster, you can definitely refer to that to see what is going on everywhere. But I will be the main focus here is to not understand each and every bit of code, but to understand like what we are doing and why we are doing that. So, and we need to understand the flow that we are doing. So that is the main focus of this stream, and that is exactly what we are trying to achieve here. So in the slash recommendation path, whenever there is a request, we got the access token from Spotify, and after that, now we need to use that access token, right? So we are getting the access token and storing it in a variable called access token. But now, hey, let's use that so that whenever we make any request with Axios, it will apply that access token in that request. So let's do that. And for that, you can go to the server.js and just copy the code from here. Awesome. I will do that. Server.js in here. Okay. Now you see that we created a variable name HTTP, and we created an Axios instance, and we made sure that it uses this access token in its authorization header. So now what this will allow us to do is that whenever we make any consequent request, it will make sure to use this token. So that will allow us to access Spotify API. Now we are done with part 2, and now if I go to the third part, which is to get the track ID from the songs, let's do that. I will copy the comment over here, and if I go to helper.js helper code folder, and on the server part, here I am able to see the code that is allowing us to do all of those. So let me copy all of that. Awesome. So I have copied all that, and let me paste it over here, and let's see what is happening over here. Okay, so this is the part that we have copied, all of these, and right away it's saying that source tracks is not defined. So if I go to the top, here is the part where we define source tracks, and let me just uncomment that as well. And it is again requiring the files and function from Spotify/action part. So we will be looking over that in a bit, but don't worry about it for now. So the first part, we got the access token from API. In the second part, we applied the token in all our requests. And on the third part, what we are doing is we are again defining a variable named track ID, because we will need that track ID in order to get recommendation for the songs, right? So whatever song we are searching, Spotify will give us the track ID for that song. It will search for that song in its database, and if it finds that song, it will return us the track ID. So in order to store that track ID, we are determining uh, we are defining a variable named track ID, and here again you will be able to see some try catch block. So we will try to execute this code first, and what we are doing is that we are sending an API request to uh, we are sending an API request behind the scene using the source track function. We'll explore that in a bit. And here again we are using track and artist, but it says that it is not defined to here. So let's see what is the problem here. Yeah, so we are sending the value of track and artist from the backend, sorry, from the front end, but we are not using it over here, right? So let's do that. Okay, just a second. So in order to do that, use that, uh, we can use something like this. Awesome. So This way, what you can do is that if you see in the script.js part of the backend, we are sending the track and ID, right, to the slash recommendations endpoint, and this is the front end calling our backend. And if you go to the backend, we are accepting that in the request object, and from the request object, we can destructure it and set the value of track and artist. And now, if you go over here, yeah, there should be no error. Cool. So we are calling that API, and we are storing the result in the track object, and this is just some basic error handling. So if we could not find any track, or if we find the track but there are the track is a list of songs, right? So if there are no songs or the array length is 0, we are just returning some error message and saying that that song by that artist is not found. So if there is no song, or no match for the song and artist, it will return this message. So now we have that value. And then what we are doing is that in Postman, whenever we send the request, we used to get a list of tracks, right? And uh, and we are trying to extract the first item. So we are trying to, from the list of song, we are just trying grabbing the first song and selecting the ID for it. So, and that is what exactly we need, right? So we need the track ID, and that is exactly what we are doing over here. So that is how we are grabbing the track ID over here. So what we are doing is that we're calling the source track API. We'll look over the function in a second. If there is any error, or if we could not find that track or song, we return some message over there saying user, hey, there was no song named this. And then eventually from the list of track, we extract the first element, and then we select the ID of that track or song, and we store it in a variable called track ID. So that is all what we did over here. And our step 3 is done. And now if I go to the step 4, all right, okay, let me go to the step 4. So it is all about getting uh, recommendation. So now we have the track ID, right? So we have the track ID. So now we have the track ID, we can hit the recommendations API. So let us go in the helper code again and copy the code from here. I'll copy all this code. Awesome. I'll copy all the code and then go over here. Awesome. And I'll paste it over here. Cool. So let us try to see what is happening. Pretty much similar flow like getting a track ID. We are just using some try class over here. We are calling a function named get recommendation, which we will look into a second. And in this function, we are passing the track ID as well as the HTTP method. So this is what we use to call Axios with our access token, right? And whatever result we get from the recommendation, so it will contain a list of recommended tracks. We are extracting that value. And again, if there is no track found, we are sending some recommendations, a message saying no recommendation was found. And if there was a success, we are sending this track object to the front end of our application, right? So response.send will send whatever is inside here to the front end of our application. So this means that this track object will be received by the client side script.js. So now let us try to see what is there in script.js in the front end. So after all of this happens, right? So eventually what we will get is so we did all of this, right? So we got an access token from it is Spotify. We applied the token to all our requests. We got the track ID, right? And we use that track ID to get the recommendation. And eventually what is returned to the front end is this thing. Eventually the front end will does not care about any of these things. It only care about what it receives. And the front end is receiving the list of tracks that it gets from the Spotify web API, right? So that is what it is getting over here. And now let us try to see how it is restructured in the front end. So if I go to the front end script.js, so I get the result in the result variable, right? So I can console.log this result to see how does it look. So I can control save, and now if I try to get recommendations button, I should be getting an object over here. Just a second. Awesome. Okay, here you will see that you can see some JSON response, right? So this is actually the list of track that the backend is sending to the front end. Backend communicate with the Spotify web API, and the Spotify web API sent the list of tracks, and that list of tracks is being forwarded to our front end. And how we can access that? Using the data method over here. Here you can see the list of track, right? So we got a array of 20 songs. So that is how we will be able to extract the songs. So if I go to my front end, what we are doing is that, so we got the result, and after that, if you see in the to do, second to do, here it is asking us to select just the top 3 recommendations. So as you can see, we are getting 20 recommendations, but out of that, we only need the top 3 because we only want to show our user the top 3 recommendations. So we will do that exactly over here. And if you go to the helper code client side, here is the all the code needed to understand that. I'll just copy this, and on the front end script.js, I'll paste it. And over here, you are seeing that we are storing the recommendations, the result of the data, and you can even see that there is a property named tracks, right? So there is a property named tracks under data. So that is exactly what we are doing. So we are accessing the result object, and then the data under it, and then finally the tracks. And out of those tracks, we are only uh, getting the top 3 using the slice method. So slice in JavaScript, it just allows us to filter the array. So 0 to 3 means the first 3 elements. So it will grab the uh, result from index 0 to index 2. So that is how we get the top 3 recommendation. And finally, we want to display this in our browser, right? So let us, do that. So it has a set of HTML template to showcase the top 3 result, and we'll be using handlebar. So what I will be doing, just copy the code from the helper code. I will copy the helper code over here, and then in the front end script.js, I'll just paste it over here. Awesome. So cool. Just a second. I will format this. You can use Prettier to format code as well. You know, awesome. So now everything is formatted, and here you can see like we are setting up a template using handlebar.js, and we are providing it a raw template. So you can see there is a raw template uh, in the bottom of the script.js page. We just says that if you like this track, you will love, and we are, displaying all the name as well as a link to click the open the song in Spotify, right? So exactly what we are getting in the over here, right? So this is the template that I'm talking about. So it will display this text, and for each of the 3 tracks, it will display the name of the song and a play button to open that in Spotify. So that is what we are doing over here in handlebar.js, and we are just parsing that template. And what we are doing is that we are setting up a variable name recommendations HTML, and using the template, we are passing the value of the track. These are the track that user entered, right? The name of the song. So we need that name of the song to display here, right? So if you like love, so this is the track the user entered, and it is exactly this track. And whatever we get from the recommendation result, so we are passing these two objects, and then we are finally setting the value of output.html to this value. And if you see what is output over here, you can see that the output is an element called recommendation output. And if you click on index.html, you'll see that there is a div element whose ID is recommendation output. So this is a blank, right? This is a blank element by default, but once we do all the API requests and everything happens, we will eventually get a list of songs, right? And that will, after doing all of that, we are setting the value of that particular div element to the recommendations HTML, which uses this template to display the result. Awesome. So that is all happening over here. And if I click on save for now, and now if I try to, go to the starter code and get recommendation, I should eventually see a list of results. Let us try to see. Okay, it is still not showing me the just a second. It is still not showing me the result over here. Let's try to see what is happening over here, all this use and everything. Okay, cool. So I'm getting the object, which means I'm getting the data, but let us try to see why I am not being able to see the response. Okay, recommendation output, that is all good. Let us see if there is anything left for us to do. I'll explain this in a second. And there's 2 part. All of these are good, looks good to me. Awesome. So we have sent the ID from the front end, and sorry, from the back end, and we're doing all of that, and we are setting the value of output. Just a second. Let me check my reference over here to see everything is correct. Just a second. Awesome. So that is recommendation output over here, right? So we are setting the value in 2 to 3 script.js. Mhm. Okay, let us try to figure out what is the error over here. Mhm, 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 mhm. That's the template. We are, if any one of you in the viewers like can suggest me, what is happening over here, I would love to know that as well. Don't straight up bet. Awesome. Let me try to see what is happening. We are preventing the default behavior. We are calling the disable button function that will display this, and we're calling the enable button function after we do everything. We're catching the error over here. We are setting the output.inner HTML value to this. The track value is set. Also, the top 3 recommendations is set. Awesome. All of that looks good to me. I don't know, like, what's the error over here? Mhm. Everything looks good to me. Awesome. Let us try to do that again. I'll just refresh this for now. Uh, Love and Taylor. Awesome. So I guess that there was some issues with some cache. I guess I did not refresh the page. So that was the issue, I would say. So now you can see that we are getting the list of songs, right? So these are the recommendations. You can change this, right? So you can call this mountain, right? And give it any other name, any of the other tracks, and you will see that you will be able to see the list of recommendation. And if you click on play button, and you will be able to listen the song on Spotify. Cool. So that is awesome, and that completes our workflow. But we have we need to understand something over here of how we are doing things under Spotify, right? So if you go once again back to the server.js, you can see that we are doing 5 different things. That we are first getting the access token, right? And we are calling some function called get access token, and then after that we are getting the track ID from Spotify by calling a function named search tracks, and also getting recommendation by passing the track ID on get this function. So we need to understand what is going behind the scene under this function and how it is actually calling the Spotify API. So I will go to the Spotify folder over here and we will understand it one by one. So let us try to first understand how the get access token function is working. Okay, so I'll go to the actions tab or the auth page over here and see what is going over here. Yeah, there might be some error with some let's refresh. I guess the perfect people mouse. I guess there was some error. You can refresh it and it should work. Cool. So now it should be working. And okay, let us try to understand what is happening over here. And before that, I just want to quickly, pull my uh, whiteboard, right? So just to, uh, you know, so this is what we are trying to do, right? So this was from yesterday's track. So let me cool my plan. So that is our aim, right? So our mission was to get a list of songs, right? Get a list of songs, and not just any number of songs, just the 3 number of songs. Based on user taste, and user will provide the track name or a song name as well as artist, right? And how does this work? So actually, it will make use of Spotify API. I will show that again as well. Spotify API, and we'll use 2 API. So we'll use first the search API or the endpoint, and then we will use the recommendation endpoint. So in this endpoint, we are passing the track name, right? So the name of the track, so name of the track and artist. So these are the 2 things that the user will pass in this endpoint. And for recommendation, what does this endpoint needs? It needs a track ID, right? So it will need a track ID. And how will we get the track ID? Once we get, this is the request part, right? So this is on the request part. So on the response, it will give us a list of tracks. It will give us a list of track which is closest to the whatever user have searched. And from that, we will select the first item, right? So we'll select the first item or the song from the result, and we will use its track ID, right? So we will use the track ID from here, and that is what is passed in this request. So the response of the first request, we will use that response, and from the list of the track, we will select the first item and we will use its track ID. We will use its track ID to pass it as the request for the second APIs, which is the recommendation API. And that is how it will give us the list of songs. So that is what is happening over here. And if you go to the Spotify API, right? Let me go to Spotify documentation. You will be able to see all the APIs from here. So we are using this API called search. So we are using the search item API and we are passing it some query that will be the name of the track and the artist. And after that, we are using the recommendation API. So under the track section, you will see that there is a get recommendations API, and we are passing it the value of seed artist, right? So sorry, the seed track. So we are passing it a track ID, and that is how it is able to give us the recommendations. So now let us try to understand what we are doing in our code. Cool. So if I go to my glitch, okay, where is it? Glitch. Okay, awesome. Here. If I go to my glitch, first we need to get an access token to do everything with Spotify because we can't directly access Spotify. So what we are doing, is using Spotify auth. And if you go to reference and go to concepts, here is the section for authorization. And yesterday we used something called authorization code, but today we are using client credentials because the communication is from a server to server, right? So our Express server or Node.js backend is communicating with the Spotify server. So this is a server-server communication. And for that, it's a very simple flow. So it will request for access token with some client ID and client secret that we are providing from our Express backend, and it will validate and return us the access token, right? So that is how we are getting the token. And in order to use that, there is a complete guide on how to use this. So we need to set something called grant type to client credentials, right? So that is exactly what we are doing over here. So if you go to the code, we are using the Axios API, and then we are setting the Spotify access token URL over here. And that what we are doing is that in the get access token function, first we are, if you see over here, we are setting the grant type to client credentials as mentioned in the docs, right? So it is mentioned in the docs that we need to set it to client credentials. Also, it has mentioned that we are using the parameters in XWWW form URL encoded. So that means it is like for the earlier part we used JSON to send our request, right? But this particular OAuth technique requires it to be XWW form URL encoded, which is like a key value pair, and we need to use it as a string. We need to pass it as a string value. So that is why we are also string we are also sending this as a string value, and in order to use that we are using the QS method. So that is why we are also requiring the QS package, and using the QS package which converts our grant type client credentials to a query string. So we are setting up that data, and now you might be wondering what are we doing with the encoded token, right? So let us see the documentation over here. So next you can see that we need to send a header with a authorization parameter, and it must be base64 encoded string, right? So and the format must be base64 encoded client ID colon and then client secret, right? So that is exactly what we are doing here. So in order to encode our string to base64, we will use the buffer object from JavaScript, and it will take the client ID from our process. We whatever we set in the .env file, right? So we set Spotify client ID and client secret. So we can grab the value using process.env, and it will grab the environment value and process.spotify client ID and separate it by colon as mentioned in the docs. And then after that, we use the Spotify client secret. Hey, thanks, Daniel, for the reminder. I guess there was some issue with my mic. Just a second. Let me check my audio. Mhm, mhm, mm, 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 mm. I hope I am audible now. So cool. So what we are doing over here is that awesome. So we are first setting up the encoded token as mentioned in the docs. So it needs to be in this format, best64 encoded and client ID separated by client secret using a colon, right? So that is exactly what we are doing here. So we are taking the client ID from the environment variable, the client secret, and we are separating it by colon, and we are converting all of this to best64. So that is all that we are doing over here. Just a second. And then we are setting the grant type as client credential, and we are defining all the authentication options. So we are specifying that this is the post request, and we set up the URL with header as mentioned in the docs. And then we are finally making the request over here. So making a request using the auth options, and then whatever result that we are getting, we are storing it in. We are getting the access token and storing it in the result variable. So it will send the response. So where did we call this function? So it was called from the server.js, right? So after the execution of this function, it is eventually returning the access token, and that is what we store over here. So I hope that makes things clear about how we are getting the access token, right? And in order to check quickly, you can even get a hint from Postman on how to do that. So if I go to the uh, track ID now. So just a second, I'll come back over here in a bit. So if I now go to the server.js again, so we covered this part on how we get the access token from this function. And in the third step, we were using the function called search tracks, right? And we were passing the value of track and artist that user entered, right? So now let us see how the source track functions works, and it is inside the actions folder. Here you will see the source track function, right? So we are first defining the base URL over here, and you can see that we are making another request with method as get, and we are using the URL. And you can see that this endpoint is similar to something that we have in Postman, right? Because this looks pretty much similar to the one over here. And if you if you go to Postman, right, and here on the top, on the like extreme right of your part, you will be able to see a code uh, button over here. If you click on there, you can select a different type of language that is support, and we will select Node.js Exeus because that is what we are using here, right? And here you will be able to see the hint of what should the request look like, right? So here you can see that there is a config object with method as get and URL, right? And all these things, and how you can make the request. So that is exactly what we are doing over here as well. So we are setting up a config object as as hinted by the Postman API, and we are setting the config object, and instead of hard coding the value of track and artist, we are using the variable, right? So we got this variable from the calling function, right? So when we call this function, we pass the value of track and artist. So that is what we are using in this function, and after that it is just making an HTTP request and sending the response back to where it was called, right? So if you go over here, and then it will eventually get the result, and we extract the track from the result and set the values from there. Now, I hope that is clear, like how we are getting the track and how we are making the request. And also let us also see the get recommendation functions in the recommendations tab. Awesome. So let us go to script.js once again. Sorry, not script.js, actions.js. And you can see like we are again making a get request to slash recommendations part, right? And we are passing the value of seed tracks at track ID. So that is exactly similar to how we get recommendations over here, right? So if you go to the get recommendations button, you will see that we are getting setting the URL is slash recommendations, and we are passing the value of seed tracks query parameter as the track ID. If I go to my part 3 and click on send, right, I will get a list of recommendations, right? So this is a recommendation for the tracks, right? And we are passing in the value of track and artist from Postman over here, but since we are using a full stack application, this value is entered by the user itself from the form. So that is how every request is happening over here, right? So, and I guess that brings us towards like the completion of this session. So if I search again, let's search for a new thing. Let's search for sports and Taylor. Cool. And it will recommend me the new songs, right? Awesome. So this is working fine. So let us quickly recap everything that we did. Let us quickly recap everything that we did, and then uh, and then we will do the closing part. Okay, so let me collapse everything. Awesome. So for folks who just joined in or who have been with me from the first part, second part, or even just today, thank you for being with me here till the end and doing this track. So let us quickly recap what we did. So our aim, let me pull my whiteboard again. Our aim here uh, was to our aim here was to get a list of songs, right? So the user will enter a song that they like, an artist that they like, and based on that, we will recommend him a list of 3 songs, right? And for that, we'll use the Spotify Web API. So that was our mission, to recommend list of 3 songs using Spotify Web API. And the only thing that the user will provide is a name of a song that they like and the artist, right? And for that, Spotify API provides 2 different endpoints. The first one is the search endpoint. So we'll use this endpoint to, find if there is a song that the user searched, and if the song is on the Spotify database, we will get the we'll get the track ID from the song. So whatever the user have searched, so there will be a list of track which is closest match to their search, and what if from that we will select the first item, and then we'll receive a track ID or the song ID, right? And and then we will use the second endpoint called slash recommendation, which will take track ID as its query parameter. So we'll need to provide this track ID to the slash recommendation endpoint, and after that it will recommend me a list of songs, but we'll only select top 3 from there. So that is what we are trying to do, and we're using this glitch which will provide all this wonderful platform where you can write code in our browser itself without the need to install Node.js and everything else from scratch. So over there, what we did was we created a public folder which contains all our client side files. So it have the HTML file, which contains all the HTML for this page. It also has some CSS and some JavaScript, which does the JavaScript file over there does just takes the whatever the user have typed in these 2 fields, and it calls an on submit form button. And what this will try to do is, take the value of whatever the user have entered, and it will call the slash recommendations API and the endpoint. And this slash recommendation endpoint is defined in our backend server.js file. And once you go to the slash recommendation endpoint, it will uh, it will first extract the track and artist from the body, and then the first step that we do is to get an access token from Spotify, because we need the access token to interact with Spotify API, and all the code for getting the access token is described in this folder. And once we get the access token, that means now we are allowed to use the Spotify API. We will make sure that we will store that in HTTP variable, so that whenever we make any other request, we just use this HTTP variable to make it, so that we don't need to call for authentication again and again. And after that, in the third part, we are getting the track ID. So the part, if you go over here, so this part, so in the SaaS source API, we are getting the track ID, right? So this is the part, and that is what we are trying to do uh, in this third section. So we are defining a track ID variable, and then calling the source track function, which will eventually call the API, and then it will give us a list of result. And finally, we will pass that track ID to the recommendations API, and then we'll get the result. And we will set that track object as tracks, and we'll pass it to the front end. And once the front end receives the result, it will extract only the top 3 result from the uh, list of recommendation. And once we get the top 3 recommendations, we will use this HTML template which is over here to display the list of top 3 results with their name and a link to open their Spotify song URL. So that is all what we did over here, and that was a quick recap. So yeah, I guess that is it for here. So let me know in the comments, like if you have any doubts, queries, or if you enjoyed this session, and if it was, some insightful for you on how APIs work and how you can call different sort of external APIs to add features into your own application. So yeah, I would love to know that if any one of you, use this code or followed along, right? So I would love to know that. And if you faced any issues or if you have any queries for that matter, so I would absolutely love to know that. I'm looking at the comments. Awesome. Let me see if there's any question for now. Cool. So you people are helping, sir. That is great to know. Awesome. Let me know like if this was all clear. And then we will move to the giveaway part. Awesome. Let me receive a message at least. Awesome. Hey, quick some awesome folks. Cool. Mhm. Okay, so I guess that brings us to the end of this part. Now we have the exciting. Yep, absolutely. This session is recorded. It will be on Twitch for 30 days and on Facebook and YouTube forever. So if you go to the MLS Facebook and YouTube page, you will be able to access it forever. So this will be recorded and you will be able to follow along. So let me open Wheel of Names, right? Awesome. Let me clear that up. So we have the swag giveaway as promised, right? So uh, the task was to, share whatever learnings you learned from this track throughout part one, part two, and this part by tagging MLS and myself on Twitter with hashtag GSW or by pasting it on the API Week channel thread. So there is a thread. Let me quickly pull that up as well. Let me pull that up. Okay, so let me see like who are our contenders. So if here is the thread. By the way, you can do that as well. Like I will give you a couple of minutes to, you know, do that if you have not already, and then we will pick the winner. Cool. So awesome. You can see some of the message over here. Okay. So I already have collected the name from the folks who have done this before the stream. So if you have not, I will wait for a few more moments and then we'll pick the winner. So the one that we have till now are Nix, Adrenaline, Subhas, and Rasmi. So four of them are here. And let me put that in the wheels of name. Awesome. So here are the other contenders. And let me also check my Twitter if anyone of them have updated anything. Awesome. Let me refresh my Twitter. Awesome. Okay, and we have also Siddharth who have tweeted about the learnings on Twitter. So these are the contenders for now, and let us see who will be the winner. Just like I'll give a one more minute if anyone have texted anything on the Discord thread. Seems like nothing over here, and this is all that we have. Let me just react to them as well. Awesome. Awesome. So time for winner. Drum roll, everyone. Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. We need some drum roll. Awesome. Let me add some background music as well. Cool. Mhm. Cool. Let us see who is the winner then. Here we go. Three, two, and one. Awesome. Let's see who is the winner. Who is the winner? Who is the lucky winner? Lucky winner. Lucky winner is. Oh, the lucky winner is Subhas. Congratulations, Subhas. So I'll be reaching out to you for the information of the swag pack. So we have the winner over here. So congratulations, everyone. And even if you are have not joined, awesome. Seems like Subhas is on the stream itself. Congratulations, Subhas. You have won the MLS swag pack giveaway. And yeah, great to see Zenial here as well. He has been with us from the first part. So great to see you there as well. Awesome. Folks, thank you everyone for joining in. Let me close the screen. Awesome. So thank you everyone for joining in. I will be reaching out to the winner in the Discord itself. And if you face any issues or if you have any other queries, feel free to mention it in the thread itself, and I will be making sure to make sure to get back to you in the thread itself. Or if you want to reach out to me on Twitter itself, that is totally fine as well. Once again, I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining in and learning with me this weekend about APIs, Postman, Spotify. I hope like you got to learn something about APIs and authentications, right? Awesome. So see you all in the next edition of Global Hack Week or some MLS hackathons. Bye bye everyone. Thank you folks. Thank you for joining in. Great to see you here. Bye bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, folks. Bye bye.